Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I hope I'm visible, audible. Please confirm it once. All right. Good evening, Smriti. How are you? Good evening, Mudit. Right, so I welcome you to the second session of VARC Gym, right, where we do a lot of practice of heavyweight RC questions, VA questions. So we just started last week and we attempted one difficult passage last week. Today also I've brought a dense passage for you from the genre cultural anthropology. Okay, and it is academic in nature, it has been picked from a research paper, so it is heavyweight, right? Um, Good evening, good evening. Hi Mukul. Hello Mitesh. Hi Piyush. Hello Beauty with Brain. Hello Ashmit. Good evening PSG. Thank you Smriti. Thank you. Only Cat. Good evening. Sharvani. Good evening. All right. I am well. I'm well. Thank you for asking. Hi Ashish. Okay, so let's see what we are in for today. Okay, so what's in store today? Let's have a look. So, you know, okay, I'm sorry. I think I have just a second. This is last week's presentation. I'm just changing the presentation to this week's. Just give me a second, okay? Yeah. Mm, just give me a second. Okay. And okay, so this is so sorry for this. Somehow my OBS is, yes, now it is picking the slideshow for today's VRC gym. All right, sorry for that. So let's talk about today's session, not last week's. Okay, glad you like it, only cat. It is a gym, so yes, we have to have these dumbbells. Okay, so you've already predicted today's RC score, or are you talking about the practice that you did today? Only cat. Right. So, what are the features of today's piece? I want to talk a bit about this because this is not a usual article excerpt. It comes from an academic source. It's from a book. Okay, so the book's name is Writing Culture, The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography. Now, because this word will be repeated in the passage time and again, what is the meaning of this word if any one of you knows? Ethnography. Yes. Let's see. So we have Bugsy Uncle today among us. Bugsy Uncle, can you tell us the meaning of ethnography? All right. So we thought different, yes, we are talking about ethnicities. Absolutely. We are talking about different cultures. That bit you've got correct. Right. People belong from various geographical areas, so we are talking about different ethnicities, different cultures, Absolutely. Graphy actually, graphene is a root which means to write, isn't it? So photography is something written on through light. Photography. So graphene means to write. So ethnography here would mean when a researcher, it's a method of research. Okay, so when a researcher, he or they want to write about a particular culture, so they go and live with the people of that culture. It's an immersive experience that they gather, and then they observe those people, they interview those people, and then write an account from their perspective. That is called an ethnography. Okay, so it's a method of research, very very popular in fields like anthropology, sociology. Okay, so it's a method of research. Now that we are clear about this, so of course this method called ethnography belongs to the field of cultural anthropology, because we are studying different cultures, and of course what are we studying? Human beings in that culture. So that's the genre. Okay, now here in the passage again you will come across this term again and again. So there is an exclamation mark before the term, and if you read it normally it's kung, right, or kung. So now what does this exclamation mark stand for? So I'm telling you this in advance. So in a number of African tribes there are languages that have these click sounds, like such sounds. Okay, click sounds. So this exclamation is not really a punctuation, it's that click sound. So the name of the tribe as they pronounce it will be kung, kung. Okay, so it's difficult for me to pronounce it because my tongue is not trained to pronounce words in such a way, but kung, that's the pronunciation. All right, and we are going to talk about this book in the passage. The name of the book is Nisa. Okay, the life and words of a Kung woman. Okay, so now I'll pronounce this word the way I am able to easily. This was just for your benefit. Okay, the life and words of a Kung woman, Nisa, and the book is by Marjorie Shostak. All right, so I think I've loaded you with a lot of information. Ethnography, its meaning, this tribe that we are going to talk about, this culture, and we are also going to talk about this book. So without further ado, let's begin. 2 slides, read each slide yourself, attempt the questions, then we discuss the passage and the questions. Okay, let's go. So here's your first slide. Read and let me know once you have finished. Perfect. So if you find any words difficult, infer their meanings contextually. Okay? All right. Let's see. Done. Perfect, perfect. So I'll discuss all these words that I've highlighted, but after the questions. Okay? So let's go for the first question. Tell me. Okay, we can go question by question. Right, let's go for the paragraph. Good. All right, going to the question. Okay, so here, see, we are saying that, all right, I've got two responses. So somebody is asking me to explain the question stem. Now, Shostak's approach. So I am talking about the author of this present book, right? So their approach to ethnography differs from the approach of most ethnographers in which one of the following ways. So they have a certain approach to their research, the way they have studied these three aspects that they talk about in the first paragraph. So how does their approach differ from that of most ethnographers? Right, that was the question. So let's have a look. See this. We talk about that, okay, she weaves together. So Marjorie Shostak weaves together three narrative strands. So there are three narrations as such. So basically three stories in a way that are present in this particular book, okay, or particular research, whatever this is, okay. And in doing so, challenges the ethnographer's penchant for the general and the anonymous. So in doing so, in this research that she has conducted, she challenges the ethnographer's inclination, liking, that's what the word penchant means, okay, inclination, liking for the general and the anonymous. Why is her work challenging this? Challenging the ethnographer's liking for the general and the anonymous? Because she does not write about general things. She is talking about, for instance, a very specific woman named Nisa, right? She is not keeping them anonymous. She is also naming this woman. So usually ethnographers, they talk about general things, they talk about anonymous stuff, okay, they keep people anonymous. However, our person Marjorie is not doing that. Our author Marjorie is not doing this. So that is how her approach is different from most ethnographers. Most ethnographers would do this. So now with this understanding, tell me what the answer should be. Yes, preference is also an appropriate synonym. So I've got 2 A's, I've got 5 C's and 2 B's, okay. She contrasts individuals' personal histories with information about the individual's culture. Where is this contrast present? Yes. Where did you find this contrast? Placing them as opposites, let's say. That is what a contrast is, no? Juxtaposition, as we also call it. So contrast, I don't see this contrast in the discussion in the passage, that she is contrasting their personal histories with information about their culture. No. This is the answer, A. She emphasizes the importance of the personal and the individual. See, what are most ethnographers doing? They are writing on a very general level and they are keeping their participants anonymous. That is what they are doing. She is not keeping them anonymous. Yes, she is rather mentioning their names. She is also not keeping it general, right? She is making it about the individual. She is including personal stories. Okay, so that's why A is the answer. Alright, B says she studies the life experiences of individuals apart from the cultural practices of a group. So is the passage saying that other ethnographers or most ethnographers don't do this? They don't study the life experiences of individuals apart from the cultural practices of a group. See, they may be studying the life experiences of individuals. However, they keep them anonymous. Okay, they keep them anonymous. So their focus is on general and anonymous, both these things. So we can't say that no, she is actually adding this to the tradition. Other ethnographers, they don't perhaps study the life experiences of individuals. Okay, so no. Alright, D, however, nobody has marked it, but let's still see it. She exemplifies her general hypotheses about a culture by accumulating illustrative empirical data. Okay, is this data that she is collecting about, let's say, Nisa, right, this woman, this Kang woman that she talks about, is this data just meant as an example or is it the main subject? This is not meant as an example, this is the main subject. Okay, so this is incorrect, inaccurate as per what the passage is saying. So you have to eliminate options this way. So for example, I labeled it and I said this is incorrect. Contrast, oh, I don't see this contrast, right? So it's not like she's collecting information about the culture and then she's contrasting it. So this is alien to my passage. This is not mentioned. Again, I labeled this. Then when I look at B, which I eliminated, I see, oh, this is not given, that the other researchers, the other ethnographers, they are not doing this. Maybe they are doing this. My passage says they are keeping people anonymous. That does not mean they are not studying their life experiences. So this is distorted in a way, right? It is meant to sidetrack you, such an option, by distorting what the passage has said. Anonymous does not mean that you haven't studied that tribe, that particular individual. Sorry. इसकी हिंदी राजपूत किसकी हिंदी इस क्वेश्चन की? तो इस क्वेश्चन में हम ये बोल रहे हैं कि ये जो पर्टिकुलर ऑथर है जिसकी बात हुई है पैसेज में, उसकी जो अप्रोच है टू दिस रिसर्च मेथड एथनोग्राफी, वो बाकी एथनोग्राफर्स की अप्रोच से कैसे डिफरेंट है, किस तरीके से डिफरेंट है. एंड वी हैव टू स्टिक टू द पैसेज इन आंसरिंग दिस क्वेश्चन. सो पैसेज ने कहा कि वो लोग तो जनरल एंड एनोनिमस की लाइकिंग है बाकी एथनोग्राफर्स में, तो उसकी अप्रोच इस तरीके से डिफरेंट है क्योंकि वो इसको चैलेंज कर रही है. ठीक है, it would be A, but I think it might be narrow. C, I think, because first she talks about Nisa, then her personality, and then the author describes her. So what you are focusing on, Piyush, I understand. A may feel like that to you, but what you are focusing when you're marking C is just on what Shostak, this particular author, has done. Remember, I have to not just show what she has done, I have to show how her approach differs from other ethnographers, most ethnographers. Okay, all right, good. Only cat. Mitesh is like, ma'am, next question bahut ho gaya. But if we are going question by question, then I have to clarify each question. Yes, let's see. Absolutely, Hemendra, this is a difficult passage. Okay. Red. All right, let's go to question 2. Okay, so we have C, B, all right, C, D. So this is an easy question. I want more of you to answer this. Okay, let's see. This is given right away to us. See, it is a salutary shock. Okay, it's a shock, but it's a sort of a shock that is beneficial for us because next time we will be careful about this. So it is a salutary shock to realize how much ethnographic literature omits the perspective, so basically views of women about women. So it is perhaps omitting their views, omitting the views of women about women. So which, okay, now see here, these words also help us. Is it admirable? Not at all. So absolutely correct. C is the answer here. Okay, it is not at all admirable. This the author does not think it is admirable that ethnographic literature is omitting women's views of women. Okay. B says it is disappointing that most ethnographic studies of women's views about women fail to connect individual experiences with larger women's issues. Is this stated in that sentence that we just read? Not really, right? So this is not a part of the author's opinion of the way most ethnographic literature deals with women's views of women. So I think this is again a sidetrack option, because when you start reading that paragraph, it is mentioned that when Nisa is asked about her experiences of being a Kang woman, she also actually in a way talks about her experiences of being a woman. So it is trying to sidetrack you by giving you contextual information. You just have to focus on that particular sentence because that captures the author's view, the author's opinion. So no. Excellent. Most of you said C. A couple of you said D as well. So let's have a look. It is surprising that more ethnographic studies of women do not use the information available through. It's not like they are not using the information available, okay, through individual interviews of women about women. It's not about the information, it's about the views, women's views of women. They are eliminating that perspective, not information. Okay, so please notice each and every word that is used in the passage. So this is, I would say, false as per the passage, incorrect as per the passage. The passage is not saying we are not using information. The passage is saying we are not giving the perspective of women about women. Alright, so C. Alright, let's go to question 3. The previous one was easy. Let's see. All right. Absolutely. That's a good choice, Siddharth. Okay, so I am now going to the question. I am assuming that you've read the part about received attitudes. It was right there in the beginning of para 2. All right. Okay. 3 responses so far. So J, between B and D, which one do you think? Again, label and eliminate. All right. So a lot of you, an overwhelming number, thinks that B should be the answer. But see this. It can be inferred that which one of the following best exemplifies. So basically I have to give an example of what? The received attitudes. What do I mean by received attitudes? So received attitudes, see this. Nisa explains Nisa's personality in terms of Kang ways, and for the general reader corrects and qualifies a number of received attitudes about simple societies. So received attitudes here in this context refers to the Western world's attitudes. See, they don't have a lot of lived experience of living in such semi-nomadic tribes. They just assume, they just imagine, right, that the life, for example, particularly to the Kang, that they have a seemingly uncomplicated way of life. They have enlightened attitudes. This tribe has enlightened attitudes toward child rearing. They know, they are pretty knowledgeable, they have a good understanding of how to raise children, and undeniable charm. They have an undeniable charm. So it's in a way, if you have to draw an analogy, this is just like a lot of upper class romanticizing village life, what it would be like to live in a rural area, such a simple life, uncomplicated way of life. Okay, and there's an undeniable charm to that life. So this is what this is what we are calling a received attitude. These are received attitudes. Okay, now which received attitude does this particular passage challenge the most? If you see, um, is this the received attitude? Considering the Kung makes Western observers happy, is this a received attitude in itself, or is this just contextual information that they carry these received attitudes? They have these received attitudes because having such opinions makes them happy. Having such views makes them happy, that there exists such an idyllic place, such a place where everything is perfect and beautiful and peaceful. So, no, the answer is not B. Okay. Excellent, Neelu, Mitesh, Siddharth. The answer is D, Delhi. Okay. No, wait. Just a second. The answer is C, not D. Wait. The experience of semi-nomadic women is much like that of other women. Okay. Let's have a look. Right. So, see this here. We are talking about a semi-nomadic tribe. The Kung is a semi-nomadic tribe. This is mentioned right in the beginning. Okay. Among the semi-nomadic Kung hunter-gatherers of Botswana. Okay. Now it says that, there are a number of received attitudes that are present about so-called simple. See, this simple is mentioned twice. Okay. So why is the author, putting this in double quotes? Why do you think? Mentioned twice and putting them in double quotes, because this is an attitude, this is just a perception that their life is simple, their life is pretty uncomplicated. It is not. Okay, that's what the author is trying to tell you, that this is a received attitude, that their ways are uncomplicated. Okay, so you had to notice this double quotes around this word simple, and it's mentioned twice in the paragraph. So the answer is not D. It's not that the experience is much like that of the other women. That is not a received attitude. No. Actually, in fact, the Westerners believe that the semi-nomadic life is different from our complicated life. Their life is uncomplicated. So, no, they don't believe this. So, this goes against what the paragraph 2 is saying. Okay. I actually thought that you would narrow down to A and C, which did not happen. Okay, so the Kung are people of undeniable charm. While this is a received attitude, I am not denying it, but the question asks you what best exemplifies. So best example is something that is challenging this main issue, that these Westerners think that they have a simple life, uncomplicated, with a charm to it. So people who live semi-nomadic lives have few serious problems. Few means very less. Okay, few is a negative word here. It means very less, negligible. Okay, so C. Does that make sense? This one was a tricky question. While the previous one was easy. Alright? Okay, don't be sad. Okay, let's go to question 4. Absolutely. I was just waiting for this. You have to tell me to go back to the passage, okay? So, yes. All right. I am now going back to the question. Okay. All right. Hmm. So I hope you've read the last paragraph carefully. Okay. All right. So let me tell you, this was this passage was a difficult passage. These questions are mostly difficult questions, okay? So it's absolutely okay if you have marked the incorrect answer. The answer here is B, Bangalore, not C, not D. Okay, let's have a look why. So I think understanding the last paragraph will help you here. So why not? Because there were 4 questions here. So let's do one thing. Let's understand the entire passage and then let's go to the 4th question. Does that work? Confused between B and D. Oh, Mudit. Okay. So, okay, let's discuss this. I'm excited to explain this to you. So, see this. This woman, this Kang woman named Nisa, her story is interwoven with Shostak's, the authors, the researchers, presentation of their encounter. Okay, so her story is not simply her story. Basically, it has been presented by the author. So, of course, when you tell someone's story, your presentation also gets incorporated into that, no, the way you present it. At times, each seems to exist primarily in response to the other. So, at times, what feels like that, uh, Nisa, Nisa's story and Shostak's presentation, it's like they are responding to each other. Each seems to exist in response to the other. So the kind of questions that Shostak must have asked her, right, that would then elicit some response from her. So that would affect the kind of story that she tells, and then the way she presents, the way Shostak presents it, will also be affected by the kind of story that Nisa has told her. Does that make sense? So Nisa's autobiography is a distinct narrative in a particular voice, right? So it's her autobiography. See this. Nisa is telling her own life story. It's in a way it should have been written by her, right? So it's a distinct narrative in a particular voice, in Nisa's voice, but it is obviously a product of collaboration. Because how has her stories been brought about? How has her story been elicited? किसने निकलवाई है वो स्टोरी निसा से? शॉस्टक ने, राइट? शॉस्टक ने कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछे होंगे, कुछ उसको डायरेक्शन दी होगी, डायरेक्शन इन द सेंस थोड़ा सा गाइड किया होगा. तो एक्चुअली में ये इंटरवोवन लगते हैं, निसा की स्टोरी और शॉस्टक का प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ दैट स्टोरी, राइट? इंडीड, by casting Nisa in the shape of a life. So actually we are looking at Nisa not just as this one woman, this one woman story. We are looking at her story like we would look at someone's life. And does life has, tell me, does your life does it have a set narrative structure to it? A beginning, then it peaks, then there comes a climax? No, right? That does not happen in real life. So she has cast Nisa in the shape of a life. Shostak employs, and by doing that, she employs a potent Western literary convention. And it is a very powerful literary style of writing in the West. Okay, by actually looking at someone's story in the form of a life, because life has its ups and downs, it doesn't follow a clear story wala structure, right? Real lives, in fact, do not easily arrange themselves as stories that have recognizable shapes. Anybody's real life, if you see, they're not very neatly, cannot be neatly arranged like stories are. Okay, with recognizable shapes, as I said, beginning, end, climax, right? Nissa, for example, often says, "We lived in that place, eating things. Then we left and went somewhere else." Does it look like a typical story to you? When we read stories, we read novels. Would you read novels that have such beginnings and endings or such storyline? We lived in that place, eating things. Then we left and went somewhere else. So it is in the process of the dialogue between Nissa and Shostak that a shaped story emerges. एक्चुअली में जब वो उसकी जो एक्चुअल लाइफ है वो एक स्टोरी की तरह शेप्ड नहीं है. जब डायलॉग होता है बिटवीन निसा एंड दिस रिसर्चर, तब उस डायलॉग के थ्रू, इन क्वेश्चन आंसर्स के थ्रू एक शेप्ड स्टोरी निकल कर आती है फ्रॉम दिस सीमिंगली शेपलेस, फीचरलेस हियर मीन्स शेपलेस बैकग्राउंड. So this happens, no, when you write about somebody's life, you take incidents from their lives and then you weave them into a story. So that is what has happened here as well. आया समझ? तो अब क्या आंसर होना चाहिए? Let's see. So the author of the passage believes that this quotation, why has this quotation been mentioned? To show you that life ना स्टोरी का स्ट्रक्चर नहीं फॉलो करती. हमारी लाइफ स्टोरी का वो जो शेप होता है, एक सर्टेन बिगिनिंग, मिडल, एक टेंशन होती है, फिर वो टेंशन रिजॉल्व होती है, क्लाइमैक्स, वो सब स्ट्रक्चर्स नहीं फॉलो करती. लुक एट निसाज स्टेटमेंट्स, द वे शी इज डिस्क्राइबिंग हर लाइफ. सो द अमॉर्फस, व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ अमॉर्फस? मॉर्फ इज शेप, shapeless. The shapeless nature of the accounts people give of their lives. This is what is being exemplified by this statement. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Why B? It is not trying to show you that their lives are difficult. No, that's not really the point here, that they are less than idyllic, they are difficult perhaps. Okay, this is the opposite, clear opposite of what the passage has said, that it has a recognizable story. So no, not C, not D. The cultural values, no, not really, that's not the point. That's not the point. This is a side track option meant to distract you. You may feel like, oh हाँ, values तो पता चल रही है इनकी, सेमी नोमैडिक हैं, एक जगह नहीं रहते, but ये point नहीं है उस पैराग्राफ में. point ये है. Okay, so again a difficult question. So I think how many? I would say 2 out of 4 were naturally difficult questions. This I feel could have been attempted with some thinking. So this was tricky but not difficult, and second one was easy. Okay. Yes, absolutely Mudit, absolutely. Okay. So now I think in the explanation of various questions, you have perhaps understood the first paragraph and also a bit of the second paragraph, that their life is not that uncomplicated as Westerners think. See, in Nissa's story itself, she loses all 4 of her children and a cherished husband. There are memories of sibling rivalries, terrible rages when denied her mother, nasty fights over food that undermine the idyllic vision Westerners cherish of childhoods lived in such simple circumstances. Right? And then we talk about woven into Nissa's autobiography are allusions. What are allusions? To Shostak's personal engagement with issues of gender. So the story is not just Nissa's story. Since Shostak has written it, her own personal engagement, the way she looks at gender, also figures into this autobiography. There are hints of how Shostak looks at gender, the issues of gender. Right? So that is why Nissa's response to what it is to be a Kung woman ends up answering another question, what it is to be a woman. right? So her answers therefore end up illuminating not just one woman's experience but women's experience in general, right? I hope this makes sense. What is explication? I think we haven't discussed this word. Explication. Yes, Mudit, reference, to refer to something, to hint towards something. But what is explication? Of experience. Basically, to give details of something. When we explicate, we are giving details of something. Why? Because we want to analyze it, we want to develop it. That's the point. Okay, so a detailed analysis, I would say. Okay, so I hope all the words and this passage now is clear to you. Can we say that? Anything that is not clear? All right then. So this passage, it came from an academic source, right? So this is the source. And in case you're wondering why we are doing this, because in your previous year, some of your passages, they have come from academic sources as well. Case in point was this passage on visual culture. I think it came in 2022 or 21, I'm not sure, but just type cat RC visual culture and you will find such an academic sort of a passage. Attempt it in case you haven't. Okay, that's your homework. All right, so this is it from my side for today. So in every session we'll do one RC or some VA questions, or we'll as suggested by a student last time, we'll also talk about certain terms that you often notice in genres such as philosophy or political philosophy, etc. So this is what we are going to do. All right, I'll meet you tomorrow again at 5 p.m. with editorial analysis. Okay, Wednesday 5 p.m. with editorial analysis. Okay, so see you tomorrow. Bye bye.